Hello and welcome to the At-Sea Podcast. I'm your host, Justin McRoberts. This is a podcast that is dedicated to helping you navigate the waters that you are in, specifically waters at the turbulent intersection of the arts and faith and leadership. I normally take a set of questions every week from Instagram and then build a podcast episode around those. I answer some of those questions at Instagram, but then what Dan Portnoy, who's the producer of the show, and I decided a little while ago was that the best way to help you navigate the waters you're in was to actually take your questions specifically. So for a long time, we were interviewing people who were working at that intersection of art and faith and leadership. And a lot of those episodes were very helpful, but I have taken deeper joy in talking more directly with you. So that's what we're doing now with the podcast. Hope you are benefiting from it, enjoying it. Before I get into your questions this week, I did want to say thanks. A number of people reached out. My son and I were in a car accident last week, and we are okay, but it was a tougher week. I had some brain fog. There's potentially some a concussion. It was, we're good. He's okay. So thanks for reaching out. But part of why we didn't get a podcast out previous is it's been a little bit tricky to get things done. So all that to say, thank you for reaching out and checking in. This week's questions, several great questions, and I've got a few right here that I'm going to be working from. Specifically, this one that I wanted to begin with. The gentleman writes, I'm in a season of feeling rejected and disconnected. How do you reconnect? In a season of feeling rejected and disconnected, how do you reconnect? First of all, that's hard. It's always hard when we're in a season of feeling rejected and disconnected. I would say that oftentimes, we're usually experiencing some sort of disconnect and rejection. In other words, we're oftentimes getting some form of no and some form of resistance in our lives. It's more a matter of, and it is more a matter of certain, when we get no's or we get a rejection or resistance from certain areas of our lives, it wakes us up to it. In other words, we're constantly working with limitations and we're constantly running up against walls. But when we hit a wall in an area of our lives where we want more freedom, or when we get a no when we really wanted a yes, that's when it starts to feel like, that's when we take notice of that limitation or that rejection. Which is to say this, instead of working and wanting to get out of that season, like how do you reconnect? Oftentimes, it's a good thing to pay attention to those rejections and pay attention to that resistance. And disconnection is a way to talk about my emotional experience of life. What we often tend to do is create kind of a binary in which I'm feeling connected or I'm feeling disconnected. And in the Ignatian spiritual tradition, which I'm learning from, by no means an expert in, the spiritual tradition speaks less about like connection and reconnection and more of consolation and desolation, which are actually two not necessarily positive or negative experiences, it's just different experiences. And then in consolation, I'm aware of the goodness of God. I'm aware of my connection with my own soul. I'm feeling more kind of in tune. And in desolation, I'm experiencing the absence of things. And both things are actually just kind of spiritual, emotional data. And instead of when I'm in a desolation place, when I'm experiencing disconnect instead of just trying to ignore it and try to get out of there, in the Ignatian spiritual tradition, we learn to pay attention to that desolation. Like, what is it that I'm missing? What's going on in my life that leads me to that feeling? And at least for a time, simply paying attention to that. What is it specifically that's leading me to feel disconnected? What am I longing for? One of the ways we learn ourselves is when we are experiencing that kind of negativity or that kind of resistance or that kind of distance. like, what is the longing that's not being met? What is the need that's not being met? What is it that I'm actually wanting from myself, from other people, and from God in that season, in that time? So maybe instead of this is my suggestion, my thought here is maybe instead of working hard to get reconnected in some way, spend some time with a coach, with the spiritual director, paying attention to that desolation. Like, what is going on in you that these feelings lead you to? What is this data teaching you about yourself? Not just about the season you're in circumstantially, but about your soul, the shape of your soul, and what it is you're wanting for the next season of your life. If we chase connection, specifically when we're in seasons of disconnection, if we just chase connection because we don't like feeling disconnected, we become susceptible to the sales pitches of lesser things. If I just want to be connected, then I end up just getting myself connected, and it doesn't matter quite as much what I'm getting connected to. Learning what it is that I'm actually longing for in those seasons of desolation can help me really form and inform, like, okay, what choices do I want to be making? Where is it my soul really wants to be connected, so that I can make wiser, deeper choices? Those seasons can be long, but they're really worth paying attention to. This second question, it's actually a question that comes up in different forms. I just happen to really like the way this question gets asked. He asks, how does one manage to do all the things that life throws at them always? How does one manage to do all the things always? What you can hear in the question, I hope you hear, and the thing I'm going to go to is the overwhelm here. This is such a common experience, by which I don't say that to diminish the experience so much as to say, man, this is a thing a lot of us are in, is the sense, the feeling that, or the pressure to, like, manage, just in general, to manage life, but to manage to do all the things always. There are so many demands on your time, on my calendar, on my emotions. I am asked constantly, and we put ourselves in these positions to do this. I put myself in a position far too often to be pitched. This is the thing you're supposed to be caring about today. Also, this is the thing you're supposed to be caring about today. Also, there's this thing we're supposed to be caring. Also, this is going on in the world. Not to mention this. By the way, you need to make a living. Also, you have to have some friends. Like, it is a really common experience, and I'm pointing this out for the benefit of us knowing that we're in this together. It is a really common feeling to be very overwhelmed right now. Not just at capacity, but over capacity. That sense of overwhelm is a way that, in talking about overwhelm, is a way in which you and I get to share in a bit of a cultural critique and a bit of a, how should I say this? A bit of a cultural critique, and maybe even a little bit of a kind of a shared need and desire to live differently. That it's not just you in your life in isolation not being able to manage it because you're weak. It's a lot of us, maybe close to all of us, having a sense of, this is just too much and there's too much being asked of me. If that's true, then maybe we are all in a little bit of a soup, and the temperature's been turned up really high on a lot of us, and we get to collectively and together share the journey outwards. And here's part of how the journey out of overwhelm works, is we must learn to disappoint some of the systems and agendas and some of the people around us who are putting demands on us always. Picking and choosing which things we're going to give our time and attention to is it's a really difficult but very necessary and good part of maturity. I've only got so much time. I've only got so much money. I've only got so much attention. I've only got so much energy. I cannot give myself to all the things always. The other way to say that is, I have to decide. I get to decide. I have to and get to decide, where is it that I really want to be giving my time, my attention, my money, my life. And here's the scandal. The scandal is that in the overwhelm, when it's all the things always, that there's kind of a pure math, and that the agencies and the agendas around us are saying this is what's important. Also, this is what's important, and you need to pick the thing that is just on its own. What's the word I'm looking for here? You need to pick the thing that is intrinsically more important. It just said this thing is the most important thing going on. This thing is the most important thing going on. Or these here's a list of important things. Pick the thing that is intrinsically most important. From the standpoint of spiritual formation, and this is where I work from as a coach, is the scandal of paying attention to your own will. What is it in your soul that you want to be doing with your time? Where do your desires lead you? Where overwhelm really does inform us is I'm experiencing myself as run too thin, and I'm run too thin. I can't do everything that I want to do. I can't do everything I'm supposed to. Underneath all this stuff is like there are ways I want to be spending my time that I'm not. If I was just doing a big list of things that I was really into, I maybe wouldn't feel quite as overwhelmed. Eventually, we get there. But I think a lot of the overwhelm we are experiencing is because the noise of urgency, the urgency of the now, is stealing from us the ability to and the practice of paying attention to our own wills. What is it that you are wanting to do? Learning to say yes to the way I'm formed internally comes at the cost of sometimes respect and sometimes connection with agencies and agendas that are wanting to use me to accomplish their ends. And I know that sounds harsh, and there are ways in which it might be easier, maybe, if we could just say yes to the right things and satisfy the needs and the demands of the moment, so that we get the approval of the world around us and the approval of people around us that we want to respect us. But part of what I think we're learning in a long, long season of shared overwhelm is that we are really out of touch with our own wills and with our own desires. And the only way, I think this is true, the only way I learn to discern where I'm going to give my time and where I'm going to say no is I've got to get in touch with what it is that I'm actually shaped to do. What is my soul's desire? What is my heart's desire? How do I want to be spending my life? When I'm at the tail end of my life and I've got months or weeks left and I know it, and I look back, how will I wish I would have spent my time? I can guarantee you it's not going to be that I spent my time saying yes to every urgency that popped up on Instagram. I hope by the tail end of my life, I can look back and say, I followed the thread of my desires to find this divine route, that I was led and called to these places, and I gave the best of myself and the most of myself in places where I felt most connected, and I was therefore most effective and made the biggest difference. So how does one manage to do all the things always? You don't. You learn to disappoint the systems around you that are demanding way too much of you and are keeping you from paying attention to your own heart, your own soul, your own will, your own desires. Let's close with this one. It's a great question. How to be transparent with others without sharing every detail. How to be transparent with others without sharing every detail. This comes up in conversation with speakers and pastors, as well as in like interpersonally, socially. So I'll talk about both things. Beginning with this, maybe this is not so scandalous anymore. Man, not everyone deserves to know the whole of your truth. And being a whole person doesn't mean that every person you talk to gets to see the best gets to see everything about you, top to bottom, dark, light, the whole. That's just not true. And I think it's a really unhealthy expectation of us. It can be an unhealthy expectation of ourselves that when I am whole and healthy, that means that whoever wants whatever piece of me gets it. You don't have to be transparent with everyone. Transparency is not a great value in and of itself. Transparency is a great practice that opens us up to certain values in relationship. But just as a principle, like this person is transparent. Man, not everyone needs to know everything about you. Not everyone gets to know everything about you. People get to, how should I say this, earn the right to know the whole of you. I think that's a really healthy boundary set to live with. That said, I hope for myself and for you that there are people with whom I can be transparent. The model of the life of Jesus is really helpful here. It's helpful all the time. It was really helpful here because he was available pretty often, but he wasn't available all the time. And he was available to a whole lot of people, but he was not available in the same way to all persons. So the breakdown I've heard is, and this works to a degree, is like Jesus spent a lot of time with like the masses. There were thousands, and there were feedings and there were teachings, and he was there and he gave the best of himself in that context. Healings and miracles and teachings, thousands of people. And then there was a group of like roughly 72 folks that he was teaching and training to begin what we know now as the church. And he was available in a different way to those 72. And then within the 72 were what we know as the 12, of which, by the way, one was a betrayer. There was the 12, and he was differently available to the 12, more intimately available to the 12. And then if we pay attention to the way the scriptures are actually written, there were really kind of these two people within the 12 who were like more intimately tied to him. And he was differently available to James and to John. James was probably his brother, to James or John or to Peter. So does that mean he was inauthentic with the masses? No, he was just available differently because they wanted different things from him. It's a really tricky, slippery piece of being available to people is recognizing that not everyone who's coming to you wants like the whole of you. A lot of the folks coming to you, a lot of the folks who are wanting your time and your attention are wanting certain things, and they have agendas, and you are good for a certain purpose in their lives. I know that sounds cold, but there will be a really, really short list. I hope that there's a really, really short list of people who don't really have that same kind of agenda. They don't have like certain things they need from you. They actually love you, and they want the best for you, and therefore the best from you. But that's a really short list of people. At best, it's a really short list of people. At worst, we don't have any of those people at all. So transparency as a value, I think it's misapplied to a lot of our relationships. This is definitely true of public persons, but it's also true of our like intimate and primary relationships. Is there will really just be only a few people with whom we ought to, and then therefore like get to share like the everything. So when you ask the question, like how to be transparent with others without sharing every detail, man, work with a therapist, work with a spiritual director, maybe a coach to talk about your primary relationships, or if you're a public person, like what is helpful, what is beneficial with regards to sharing like the details that are deeper, maybe even some darker details. Where would it be best and healthiest for you to do that? So that when you give those pieces of yourself, you're not, the way Jesus talks about it, not like offering pearls to swine. That like these are deep, deep gifts. To give yourself wholly and completely to someone is a deep, deep gift. You want to be giving that in a way that is actually good for the person you're offering that gift to, but in a way that also benefits and enriches your own soul. I get that sounds selfish, but again, the myth of transparency is that like once you're whole, you get to give everything to everyone all the time. And I think that's unreasonable. I think that's incredibly unhealthy. Thank you for joining me on this episode of the @Sea podcast. If you are enjoying what we're doing, feel free to support this podcast at Patreon. Go to patreon.com/Justin McRoberts. We'd love to have you on the team. Until next time.